Today, the joys of travel, how enriching it is, and a trip we're going to take. Hang tight. That's Cal, the guitar hero, with our intro. Today, Charlie Crull is with us from Cruise and Tour because what they do is enrich our lives with travel. So, Charlie, I want to start by telling you a story that is a profound experience I've had traveling. 2018, my wife and I, Mrs. Hunter, went to Japan. And we hired a local tour guide in Osaka. And it was supposed to be, it's one of those customizable tours. So we said we wanted to eat like locals. So just take us to places. And we did. It was supposed to be like a 3 or 4 hour tour. We hung out with this guy until 2 o'clock in the morning, going to places in Osaka, Japan, I never would have dreamed of going to, like hidden places, up the stairs into this little karaoke bar, or this place that serves all kinds of crazy foods. I think about that night all the time. And I think about the connections you can make when you travel with just that, what looks like a simple experience. And that's why you and I connected, because this is what you do. You connect people to experiences they can't really get anywhere else. And this is a family thing for you. So rewind the clock to me, because your mom started the company Cruise and Tour, and you've been traveling since you were like 4 years old.
Yeah, hey Rob. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You kind of really, if you were born into something, you don't really 100% know any other way. But yeah, my sister and I have been traveling and kind of tagging along with my folks for as long as I can remember. I think I like to say I've been interning for this job since I was 4 years old, and it to me, one of the most important aspects of it is that I do think it is a huge part of who I am, having the opportunity to see the world and feeling comfortable enough to have those types of experiences like you just described there. I grew up in a quaint little town in Wisconsin, and I would call it a bubble. I was in a little bit of a bubble, and to be able to go outside that bubble and to see and do so many crazy things throughout this world, yeah, it definitely helped define who I am today.
You've been to 7 continents throughout your journey. And, you're, how old are you? I mean, the fact that you've been to 7 continents is just so fascinating to me, because that is the dream. I would love to get to all 7. So far, I've only been to 2.
Yeah, I'm 41. I got there when I was 18.
Mhm.
But I don't wear that necessarily as a badge of honor, more of a like, wow, like that, like how lucky am I to have had that opportunity? And I really try and impress upon people that are kind of on the fence about traveling or taking a really exotic experiences, as you did. To just get out of their comfort zone, because I realized a lot of people haven't traveled their whole life. A lot of people who come to us are really actually traveling for the first time, and that's like a really big intimidating thing, leaving kind of our comfort zone. And yeah, it's been pretty incredible.
Give me an experience, Charlie, if you would, that really sold you on travel. I mentioned the Osaka one, but I'll go back to the first one where my eyes were opened. Somehow at 14, I was a freshman in high school. The school was doing this trip to Italy and Greece. And our history teacher dropped it in our laps one day. So I took it to my parents and I said, any chance you guys would let me go on this? Somehow they said yes. So at 14 years old, not old enough to necessarily appreciate all the fine things in Athens, Greece, and Rome, Italy, Florence, Italy, I went. But it was this whole new world. And I remember sitting in a cab in Athens with these 2 other guys I was traveling with. I was the youngest guy on this trip. And we're just out and about on our own in Athens in a cab while Greek rap music was playing on the stereo. And it's like those little moments to me popped my bubble or expanded that bubble and broadened my perspective. And some of that I still use to this day as part of my belief system that, especially when you travel, people are meant to come together and connect.
Yeah, it's I've been the whole time I've been trying to think about one specific experience, but I think for me, what actually is more profound for travel, and why I've not only traveled myself but led lots of groups all over the world. And the one big thing for me, first of all, personally, is how I think like the human body needs to feel the exhilaration of being in a completely different environment. And so, you mentioned Osaka, Japan. Like, imagine landing and you can't read the signs, you don't understand the language, and it's like, you're all delirious from a long flight. And it is a lot of people think that, wow, that sounds like really scary, but it's exact opposite. Like, our bodies, like, just feed off of that. And and so I love that first experience of anywhere you go, just like landing and getting out of the airport and feeling the, whether it's humidity or cold or whatever it is, and then starting to have some of the sights and the smells and the sounds of this new thing. It's like your body is just so overwhelmed, and it's so exhilarating. And one of the things I love about leading a group of people to just a completely foreign destination is watching them transform in that moment. So yeah, a day goes by and they're all geared up, but they need to go to sleep, and they wake up the next day, and it's like, it's amazing how fast the brain like adapts to, like, wow, I'm in this like totally new environment, and they kind of surrender to the flow. Like, wow, we're safe. We've got incredible guides taking care of us. As you mentioned, you had some locals kind of showing you the hidden treasures of that destination. So for me, I think, most recently, I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania with my son George, who was 9 at the time, and experiencing that moment with him, watching, trying to like see through his eyes, like, the same way I may have experienced, like, was just profound. At first, there's a lot of apprehension, like, where are we and what are we doing? And then it's like, surrender to the flow. Like, this is insanely cool. And to have that experience with him and a few other family members was just an absolute dream come true for me.
Take me there. Tanzania, that is 100% on my bucket list. It doesn't necessarily have to be Tanzania, but this idea of where humanity started in that country of Africa, and where those animals who were so graceful and beautiful roam. What was it like being there, and what did you take home with you after spending that time with your family?
Yeah, so I think, and this really applies to travel in general as well, is a lot of people go somewhere for something. Like, it's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I have to see that, or the whitewashed buildings in the Greek Isles, or in the case of Tanzania, the safari. And so to me, one of the important aspects, I mean, one of the most profound aspects of it was the wildlife, and like just watching, like just like pinching yourself, like, this actually exists on our planet outside of our TV set. So that in general, I mean, just the sheer magnitude of the wildlife, the proximity of the wildlife, being in a hot air balloon and kind of being like, all right, here we go. Like, we're not, there's a lot of rushes like that. But what I always realize anytime we go somewhere, and this is almost universal, is the people taking care of you almost always have the biggest impact on you while you're there. They are just so kind and generous, and just, I mean, they are there like truly to welcome you to their country and show you around like you're a family member. And the passion that they put into that, and the satisfaction that they get out of that is almost always what I come home thinking about. Of course, yeah, we saw some incredible wildlife, and met some really people, and saw some incredible scenery, but the people there like almost always have the biggest impact.
One of the tour guides I had, my second trip to Rome, which was in 2012 or 2013. I'm actually going in a couple weeks back to Rome for a third time.
Oh, nice.
We had this tour guide. His name is David Macchi, Rome guy, loves Rome. He said on the trip, Rome, greatest city in the world. He said it numerous times, but he was an expert. He was writing a book on all the churches in Rome, which, are numerous.
Just a couple.
Yeah, exactly. But that experience of being with him as the expert really just transformed our experience, because I've done the Mrs. Hunter and I go travel. That's what we did in Japan. It was just the two of us. I've done the tours, and the difference is that you get that little local touch. So one of the things that David recommended, we were in Florence at the time. He goes, you have to get a lamprodotto sandwich. And we're like, okay. He's like, what it is? It's like the fourth cow's stomach or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it's like this little food truck. And he says, go get it. And, they get little sauces that you put on it. So, of course, we go try it. And it was delicious. Now, if you had said, go eat tripe or cow's stomach, I would have been like, nah. But since he recommended it and he said, give it a try, I'm like, look, I take a bite. I'll throw it away if I don't like it. But I scarfed that thing down. And without having David there, I wouldn't have known that. So that tour guide is super important to customize your experience while it's happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think about a tour guide as a person who recites a lot of facts and just, reads off a bunch of stuff or just like kind of spews out knowledge, but it really couldn't be further from the truth, especially when you have some actual time to get to know them. When you can learn about their family and how they got there and why they love what they're doing, and that's when you start to really unwrap the authenticity of the experience. So you're always going to get all the facts, which are really important. It's like while you're there, you want to know all of this stuff. But your David is my Anna Maria in Rome. I mean, she is like, wow, like I'm going to take you to this place, to this little mom and pop shop to get this balsamic vinegar that you cannot get anywhere else. Oh, and by the way, I brought you some olive oil from our olive orchard just out of town. Like, I mean, just stuff like that, like where like if I'm going there, I am calling Anna Maria and she's like family to us at this point. It's pretty incredible connecting with these folks who truly enjoy sharing their culture and their country.
Yeah. And those are the experiences that you can't really create on your own. I think you can go, you can travel, you can hire a local tour guide for a day, but when you're on that tour, you get so much insight in so many different ways of looking at things, I think, because you do get access to, like I said, in Osaka, we literally walked up to the stairs into this karaoke place that I would have not been able to find because I can't read the sign. I don't know what that is. But yep. Bryce, our tour guide, this is a fascinating thing about Bryce, too. Our tour guide who took us to this karaoke place. He was a Frenchman living in Osaka. So he spoke French, Japanese, and English. So that's just fascinating in and of itself because the tour guides have had all these experiences that you get to ask them about that they get to share with you, too. So getting to know Bryce is why we ended up hanging out for like 8 hours, on a 3-hour tour because it was like we were old friends almost right off the bat because you have so many commonalities to start with, and then you just see where the adventure takes you. So if you get to do it, like we're going to go to Ireland, and you've got us a local tour guide named John, an Irishman who knows Ireland like nobody else. So we're going to be able to peek into all these little Irish things like Bryce gave us access to while we're there in Ireland. So you've been a tour guide. How do you craft that experience for us when we're traveling as a group of 35 or 40?
Yeah, I think, it starts off, you're right, having the right guide who can deliver the experience. Because we can put all sorts of things on paper. We can say all the biggest things and do all we're going to go here and we're going to go there. You don't have somebody who actually knows how to execute it and then be able to show you all those little hidden items in your free time. Our company is built on repeat travelers. And so once somebody decides to travel with us, they rarely go anywhere else, or maybe they do a couple of things here and there. But a lot of times they are super motivated to come back because the expectation exceeded their wildest dreams. And that was the thing about my folks starting this company. Not only did they start the company, but their motto is, we don't send you, we take you. Meaning they used to personally escort every single trip that they went on. And so in a lot of my childhood, I was tagging along or we were with babysitters. So we had to make some sacrifices. But at the same time, that was how near and dear they held that to their heart. If they planned a crap trip, they were on the trip to hear about it from the clients, and believe me, they heard about it. So, for them, custom curating lists of guides and sites and experiences throughout the world. My dad was a marketing. I mean, he used to write those like long form letters with bolds and underlines and like describe the whole thing. But they were there, and they were there to solve problems. They were there to laugh and have a couple of cocktails together, but they were there to hear about it when it wasn't going well as well. So that has been really ingrained in the fabric of our company. It's like we treat each experience that we put together like this is the first and last time somebody is going to travel. And so if they've scraped together just enough dollars to be able to travel to Ireland, they better damn well be able to get the most out of it and way more. And so it like starts with John, and then it's like this long list of logistical items that kind of are woven together that a traveler really knows about and knows nothing about. They're just there to say, yeah, sounds good. I'll be up at 8 tomorrow and have some breakfast and on our way to the next stop and sound, so that is what we have really, really spent a long time perfecting in this industry here.
So we're working with Charlie and Cruise and Tour on an Ireland trip next summer, July 2024. We leave on the 27th, 10 days, 9 nights in Ireland. You're invited. Easiest step right now, check the itinerary, tourwithrob.com, and then you got to call them because right now you're going to save $100 per person. 800-383-3131. 800-383-3131. Come to Ireland with us. Charlie, you've been to Ireland, I imagine.
Yes. Yep.
What is so enriching about Ireland? Because the tour you guys put together for us at tourwithrob.com, not only it looks so ridiculously gorgeous and green and the cliffs of Moher that you get to see. And even the pictures just got me wondering, dude, Earth is amazing. How much of it can I see before my time expires? So I just imagine sitting there looking at those cliffs and just taking it all in and just being stunned. So for you, I've never been to Ireland. What stands out? What are we going to do as a group that's just going to blow our minds?
I think this is one of these trips where there isn't one specific thing that's going to blow. One specific thing will blow your mind, and another specific thing will blow someone else's mind on this trip. So, unlike the example I gave of going to Tanzania, like seeing a million wildebeest run by is going to blow everybody's mind. This one is more like sum of all parts together. It makes one of the most perfect trips that we've put together. First comes to mind is like old world beauty. Just seeing the old world and seeing those, a million shades of green, standing up top a 700-foot cliff, with the ocean roaring in. I mean, so scenic beauty, and it's exactly what you would imagine, with sheep out in pastures and fields and stone walls and castles. I mean, so the beauty is stunning. For me, what stood out when I went there is the locals. The locals are exceptionally welcoming here. I know I mentioned that earlier, but in this case, Irish folks are just as interested in about getting to know you and having a conversation, of course, over a pint or two. Or 3, they do enjoy a good time, and so right off the bat, we arrive in Dublin and we're going to have what we call an Irish house party, where it's like, hey, if you want to hang with the locals and and get welcomed like a local, so that's how the group gets to know each other over a couple of drinks, a great Irish dinner, and so I think there, for me. It's the locals. It's the experiences, the friendliness of the people. You don't get that everywhere. You get that double in Ireland.
That's going back to the Osaka story. That has become my favorite part of travel. It's awesome to see churches. It's awesome to see natural beauty. But there's something about, Charlie, that connection that you can make. So what I love about this trip that we're doing in Ireland is not only are we going to connect with the locals, but if you come with us, we're going to connect and we're going to become friends. And as Charlie mentioned, we might do this every year for the next, who knows, 20 years.
Do it. Let's go.
Yeah. And that's kind of the goal, right? Is to be able to get a chance to use the modern technology that we have to fly to places that our ancestors couldn't. For example, Charlie, my grandmother made it to about 97 and never flew on a plane. So in 2 generations in my family, we've gone from never traveling on a plane to me. I've been now to 14 countries, I think 41 US states. And just to have that opportunity it's just, I go back to that word enriching. It's just made my life more fulfilling. So that being said, of the 14 countries I've been to, there's about 75 others that I want to go to because
Yep.
the world is available to us and the world can teach us and enrich our lives by connecting with each other on this trip to Ireland and on trips beyond that, but also connecting with John, our tour guide, and whoever we encounter while we're there. Like these are experiences we'll carry with us in our memories that will inform us for years to come. I imagine you feel very similar about traveling.
I think so. And this is one of the reasons why we focused our specific niche in this business on what we call passionate community travel. So you, Rob, are a passionate guy, and you have a very passionate community of people that hang out with you daily. And what we have found is that the little secret ingredient to travel is, again, the people involved, but not just the locals, but the people you're hanging out with day in and day out. And, a lot of people put almost all of the value of the vacation or the stock of what they're buying as to the experiences they think they're going to have. Like, I'm going to see this and I'm going to see that. I'm going to kiss the Blarney Stone and I'm going to drink some Guinness. And those are all fantastic aspects of this tour. But I promise you, people will come home saying, wow, like I just met some really incredible people that I absolutely want to travel with again, because we share similar mindsets, similar interests. It just so happens that we actually grew up around the corner from each other or whatever. And so, we see that day in and day out. And that is that thing that people can't quantify when they're signing up right now, especially for the first time, but will come home saying like, yes, like that is the way I want to travel from here on out. So I am super excited for you because you're going to be hanging out with a bunch of people that are just interested in the same things and want to have some really enriching conversations over dinner and a whole bunch of laughs. And it's a really important part of what we think makes a incredible experience.
So pause this podcast and call Charlie and the team. Cruise and Tour, 800-383-3131, 800-383-3131, because this is going to be unforgettable. I look, Charlie, as travel's an investment. So the money I've spent on travel, every single dime has been worth it tenfold, because money is money. I get it. But certain things you spend money on just come back to you over and over and over again, like a good investment would. Like you invest in a stock, helps you retire, helps you maintain your lifestyle. Travel does that same thing, just in different ways. That, for the price of a plane, it's just what I also love about this, tourwithrob.com. One stop, boom, go in, get it done. Everything else is handled for us. It's my kind of way to travel. I don't have to overthink it. I just show up, have a plan, and just go where the road takes us, where you guys at Cruise and Tour take us. That to me is just, it's just so much easier than versus our Japan trip, which we planned it all ourselves. We're going to do this. We're going to take the train from Tokyo to Osaka, and then we're going to go to Kyoto, and then we're going to come back. All of that stuff takes time, takes effort. It's all fine, but you guys have made it easy for us because you guys are the experts. You know what to do. You know where to go. So we just get to go, land, get on our bus, have our drinks, and have a great time.
Yeah, listen, there is definitely a million different ways that you can travel. And as you just mentioned, you can plan your own travel. I've planned my own travel as well. It definitely, there is value to that. And there's also value. And there's a lot of people who see value in just saying, yeah, this looks about right. And let me just sign up and drop your bags. And so here's the two different types of clients we have. The first timers, who look, they're a little apprehensive. Like, we just spent a lot of money, and I want to make sure that money that we spent, is everything is perfect. And usually after they've had that first experience with us, and we don't even look at it as like the travel experience. We look at it as, from the moment you sign up, or even before that, the questions that you have, we look at that as the beginning of the journey or the beginning of the travel experience. And so, you're going to get travel essential guides as how to prepare and, what to wear and all that kind of stuff. You're going to get, week prior, what's the most important items to remember, all the stuff that you need to feel prepared. But then we have some of our travelers, and we've had some of our personalities. One of them just finished their trip. They did 29 trips in a row. And another one just finished up 17. Those people are like, I'm signing up and just do it and forget it. They know the drill. They know exactly what to expect and how well they'll be taken care of. But a lot of people who have either busy or have earned the ability to just say, yeah, that sounds good, let me sign up. These are like all the details, like what if the bus doesn't show up or something like that? Like, first of all, that usually does not happen. But if it does, we got you covered. We got this all figured out. So a lot of those what ifs while you're traveling, they're not stresses anymore. And so, if you've ever experienced like travel anxiety, like, the next day we got to do this, we got a big move going here, we're doing that. Like those just become like, I'm just waking up, having some breakfast, and going out on tour today, and rinse and repeat daily. And so it's a totally different feeling when it's all taken care of you, including the tips. Like you're not even grabbing your wallet every time you see someone. We include everything so that you can just enjoy.
That's fantastic. See, that's something I didn't even know. So looking at the price, and you're like, well, but you just know that it includes everything.
Yep.
Includes all your food, all your lodging, your bus tours. And the bus tours are really interesting too, because I've been on the big group tours. That second trip I went to Italy with was part of a big tour. We're on a bus. But you get to know those people that you're traveling with. They were complete strangers. But by the end of the trip, we were all friendly. We laughed a ton on the bus while we were traveling between Rome and Florence and Siena and all these other great places in Italy. That is rewarding in and of itself. And you mentioned, Charlie, this idea for our trip to Ireland is just that. It's a bunch of us just getting together, having really a big old party as a travel adventure. And how do you beat that? You just can't beat that in life. To experience these new things in new places, or if you've been to Ireland before, it will be a completely different way, because the community part of life is something that I just value so much. And that is something I think, Charlie, that you guys do at Cruise and Tour so well. You guys yourself, your unit is a great collaboration, teamwork, get people to have these unique, amazing experiences that you can't get anywhere else. I can't stress that enough, because if I look back at my life and I start to look at all the things that I've done, the travel is always at the top of the list, no matter what. Like my career success, the effort I put into that, the travel still comes in on top of that because of what it's done for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. It's completely enhanced my life.
I was thinking back to one of the first things I said, where it was like when you arrive and your body, like you feel something different, like you're in a different area and you kind of go into survival mode or something like that. I feel like something about that makes like your ability to recall specific memories and that heightened sense of awareness when you're in a different place. And sometimes we talk about like, hey, don't give stuff, give memories when it comes to to travel. And I can recall like specifically standing on a bridge looking in New Zealand, looking down at this raging river below me. And I was 18 years old. So this is 22 years ago. And I can remember exactly what I was wearing and looking at this river and looking at this guy and like, you want me to jump into this thing? I'm going bungee jumping in this river right now. And my mom's standing next to me like, you don't have to do it, Charlie. Just because you thought you wanted to do it, don't worry. Like, you don't have to. I'm like, and the guy's asking me, hey, how far do you want to go in the water? And like, or do you want to go in the water? And like, I'm like, So, I mean, like things like that, like, I mean, will live with me. I will tell that story to my hopefully great grandkids, 60 years from now. It just, I mean, the profound effect, and I have a story of every different place, whether it was just a little conversation that I had, or being welcomed into a guide's home, or seeing the Coliseum and like standing there and like sitting there like just trying to like think like what happened here, like this is insane, like the things that have gone on here, the blood that was spilled here, like I mean the people that you, I mean, having those types of moments, like they weave into your brain in a completely different way.
And I love the Coliseum example because when you're there, you're thinking that you just can't help it. That these used to be entertainment. Like people used to kill each other as entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think about, okay, what was that built in like 79 AD or something? I can't remember the year. And the fact that it's still there is stunning in and of itself. But you think about how we've evolved since then and tying it back into Ireland, we've did some stuff from the 12th century. Here in America, everything's relatively new. So to be able to go see places that maybe your ancestors used to run around in and do, and to appreciate how far we've come from the 12th century or 79 AD, that all these technological advancements that allow us to live in the greatest time ever to be a human being. But to be able to compare that, it also just makes me, Charlie, way more grateful to be alive now, because some of that old stuff, I'm like, man, that was hard living.
I know. I'm thinking like Braveheart when I'm thinking, like just running from city to city right now, or from town to town. Like it's pretty wild when we think about that. And like, but we've got great whiskey because of for all that hardship, and obviously incredible beer that came out of Scotland and Ireland. And so yeah, it's pretty wild. And you get glimpses of that for sure, like the castle stay, the Cabra Castle that we're going to stay in and around, and just again that old world feeling that you're in there. Yeah, it's hard not to feel like you're transported back into time a little bit.
Have you had any travel experiences that weren't ideal? And if so, what did they teach you, and how do you apply those lessons now?
Yeah, I mean, it's so travel can be, in my profession, travel can be a challenge because of um, hey, guess what? Things go wrong in travel, and so as buttoned up as we are, and I could tell you, like we are really tight on things. There's almost always, bumps in the road and hiccups. So flights canceled, or weather, or just random geopolitical things happening, or whatever. And it's really taught me. Just how to be flexible, and realize like when you're having an experience, you're on a journey, and you're being with a group of people in this insane culture, and I just learned how to be flexible, way more patient than I ever was before. It was always like, I want this to happen now, and and now it's like, okay, like, all right, things are going to happen, we're going to keep on living, everyone's going to be great. Hey, we might buy a beer while we're waiting for something here, but it's yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I've been to places, like I went to Antarctica, and it was like one of the roughest voyages over there, going through Drake's Passage, and like I mean everybody's like green, and it is like, okay, it was the price of admission, like
Yeah.
we set foot on land, and it's like, okay, we are in Antarctica. We kind of knew that was coming, but it's things where hey, you're willing to just be a little more flexible, a little bit more just willing to go with the flow to have the experience.
What I like is you can apply that to anywhere in life. Anywhere
Sure.
there's a trial and tribulation, I do that too. I'm like, okay, bad things are happening. Take a breath, focus on problem solving, not what's already happened. So, for
Yep.
example, some of I just love that the travel example. So, I'll go back to Japan, 2018. We're in a subway station, and I can't remember if we're Osaka, if we're in, Tokyo, and there was no signs in English. And I was looking at my Google Maps, and it wasn't being as clear as it had been on that trip as to which way I needed to go. And I was terrified to ask someone for help. And I was like standing around trying to figure it out. Amy's talking to me, Mrs. Hunter, and I'm like, oh, and I'm snapping because I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get lost in Japan and what's going to happen? And Amy's like, just go talk to that guy right there. And I'm like, what if he doesn't speak English? He's like, well, try, point to your phone. And I'm like, okay. So I go and I nervously ask him for help and he points me in the right direction. And I'm like, oh, so learning to adapt and be patient, but also learning to ask for help, especially in a foreign country where you don't know all the rules and all the customs or which way to go necessarily. Every time I've been in a situation where it's been like that, asking for help and now doing it in real life at home also helps tremendously because people got your back. People always traditionally want to help each other so that you don't end up lost.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's you mentioned it's being a little bit vulnerable, being out there. Like you see the folks that we're traveling with, they the moment they feel like they're secure, it's like ultimate trust. Like, oh, sounds good. What are we doing next, and how are we doing it? And oh, let me introduce you in Ecuador to our naturalist guide Bolo. Like this is our 15th time that we've worked with him. Like he is going to rocket for you. Like, I mean, just stuff like that. Like just knowing that you have people around you that will take care of you and have your best interest in mind, is that, an added layer of security. Now, of course, there's a time where, I was walking through, LAX, like literally the world's most confusing airport. And I've got this group of people walking behind me, and I had no idea where to go next. And so I'm talking to this airport attendant. This is an example where it burned me. They're like, you need to go to floor 3. I'm like, okay, sounds great. So we're at the elevator. I get in the elevator and I press 3, and like the door opens back up again. I'm like, all right, the door closes. I press 3, the door opens back up again. I'm like, we're on floor 3. Like, so like now I don't even have to, like, so then I got to get the 20 people back off the elevator. And, it's like, okay. So sometimes it burns you, they might not exactly, but for the most part, people really do have your best interest in mind, especially when you're a foreigner in their country.
Yeah, and that was in America, so it's like less likely that Americans will probably help each other out rather than
they were probably messing with me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You mean all these people, huh?
Uh-huh.
Go 3. Go in that elevator right there and press 3. Got it.
Why does this door keep opening? Oh man.
Exactly. So what other countries, Charlie, have stood out to you that maybe surprised you a little bit? I don't know if you have a number of countries that you've been to, doing this, but for you, sometimes it's a job. Sometimes it's for fun. So as you've done both the job part and the fun part, were there countries that were like, wow, I didn't expect that, or experiences perhaps?
Ooh, most recently, I was just in Alaska this past summer, and Alaska. This is my second time there, and I was able to bring my son with me on this trip. And flying to Alaska, like you looking out the window and you're like, this scenery exists in this country. Like this, I mean, Alaska is like the most rugged. And so before that, I kind of had this like feeling of we're going to land in Alaska and it's going to be a little over touristy and kind of hokey. And, because this is a tourist state, like you go there in the summertime and then, it's local time in the winter. But, it could not have been any further from the truth. Alaska is just rugged and beautiful, and I mean, as scenic as it could possibly be, and so sparsely populated. And I mean, I don't know, whales everywhere and bear. I mean, it was just wild, So sometimes you get these expectations in your head of what something an experience is going to be, and then it couldn't be further from the truth.
I think that that's a great lesson too, because what I've started to do is clear my mind of expectations, especially when traveling. So that way I can just allow it to be. So when we go to Ireland, I have an idea of what I'm most excited to see. But going back to what you said, that patience, there's going to be things that happen outside of our control. I'm just going to roll with it. So one example I'll give is like a real life example. This is how I've applied this lesson. So I was in Florida in March and got a call from the city of Phoenix where I live. And the city was like, you have a water leak at your house. And I was like, oh no. So I'm a few thousand miles away. I'm like, what do? I said, okay, what's already happened has happened. Maybe everything in my house is flooded. I don't know, but I got to mentally prepare for the worst. And then I got to take action. So in shifting gears and learning this through travel and adventures and, trying to figure out things that don't go your way. I'm like, all right, I call my buddy Rob and I'm like, Rob, go check out the house, see if there's anything. He's like, all right. So he goes, he checks, and he's like, I don't see any water anywhere. So it turns out the city turned off the water. And I called the plumber after that and got the appointment for Monday to solve the problem. Those are the kind of things you can learn while you travel because you're in a different place. Everything doesn't always go in a straight line, but that's the fun of it. That's the adventure of it. Is it's not that it's ever disastrous. It's just, oh, it rained on this day. So how do you make the most of a rainy day? Well, you do rainy day things. You learn how to adjust and apply that to your life to be able to adapt to weird situations that happen.
Yeah, we good rainy day example. I had a group in New York City. We're just doing a 4-day, all the highlights and insiders and all kind of stuff like in New York. But this was funny. We were on the bus. They had just gotten from the airport, coming in from the airport, and I said, "Well, folks, good news. It's not going to snow." It was like May. But we had a classic nor'easter coming in that was going to dump. I mean, it shut down New York for the day. The amount of rain, and we went to the subway to the financial district and went and saw the Statue of Liberty and all the stuff. But I remember getting off of the ferry, from basically back from Statue of Liberty. And people were just laughing. I mean, it was raining to the extent that you can't even make it up. And it turned out to be the funny, the best part of the trip because it was just all going so wrong. I mean, it was just inches of rain pouring down. And it had not rained like this in New York in forever. And so, but it was like people, 10 years later, I'm, talking to them and oh, the rain, in New York, they remember specifically that was their moment is just getting absolutely hammered and wow, great perspective. They turned a totally crap moment into the favorite part of the trip because they were just willing to go with it.
And you're still in New York. You're still seeing all the amazing things. And I love New York because I find it to be incredibly inspiring. I had a night like that. I went in December and this is Hunter and I went to a Broadway show and the place we were staying was, like a mile and a half away. So we decided to walk. Of course, on the walk home, 11 o'clock at night starts pouring. It is cold and we're walking, but we got in the room and we're like, that was kind of fun to walk in New York in the rain. Even though we were soaked and we were cold, we got our clothes off, we got in the shower, it was all good. Because you're able to shift that into something fun rather than, oh, this is miserable. I can't believe it rained. Look, you can't control the weather. You just got to rock with it.
Yeah, and if you do have a problem, New York has about 10,000 cabs at your disposal. Although when it is raining, they are actually harder to find now that I think about it. But yeah, you can always adjust if need be there.
Yeah, exactly. So what other adjustments have you had to make? Because I love this travel on the fly and figure things out. Are there other experiences to you that you stood out where you're like, wow, okay, and maybe it's for a good thing. Like maybe you spotted an opportunity. Like our tour guide, David, I talked about in Italy. They gave him a little bit of, some spending cash. So we're in Rome somewhere and we're walking around. He goes, I have an idea. Follow me. So we follow him and we walk by all this awesome stuff, fountains, statues, and we end up in this little gelato shop. And the whole group, all 44 of us, have a little gelato. And we're just hanging out, talking over gelato as a little segue moment from the, hey, here's another church, here's another statue, here's another fountain, to let's just chill out and have some ice cream in this little square in Rome and just enjoy the moment.
No, I mean we've definitely tucked into many a pub throughout the world to to have a beer and a laugh here and there when we need to kill time or sometimes there's these free time experiences where it's like, great, we're in the city center and halfway through the trip the guys are like, ladies are off shopping, we're going to drink some Guinness or we're going to drink some, and so having those types of moments. One of the great, adjustments or circumstances that I can remember, we were in Russia when the ruble crashed. I think that was 90s or something like that, and so it was literally crashing at that time. And I remember looking on there was this billboard, rent, for one of the apartments, and it was like it equated to basically 50 cents a month. That billboard was like out of date, like immediately, because the ruble was crashing. But people were buying suitcases and coming home with like full bags full of Russian trinkets, like nesting dolls and things like that, because they were buying them for like nothing, because everyone's like, yeah, sounds good, we'll take dollars, like and so there's been some like crazy moments throughout the world, where you're there and you just happen to be there in a moment in time, when this is profound in this specific location. And so, being part of that as well. And then the opposite of that, from a travel advice perspective, is like, don't always believe what you see on TV. When it comes to, like, I feel like a lot of people have this fear of travel, like, oh, I'm not going there. I always make the example of when, growing up in Wisconsin, I'm like, well, you don't want to go to that country, but would you live literally 15 minutes from Milwaukee? Would you go to the north side at 4 a.m. and walk around? Like, no. Like, well, great. We're using common sense, and this is a big country that we're going to. I was in Athens when Athens was on fire, and everybody was rioting and all that kind of stuff. And I got a text from some friends like, "You're in Athens right now?" I'm like, how is it? I'm like, I literally see nothing. Like, there was a demonstration in the square at like 2:00, and at 3:00 it was over. But like, supposedly Athens was on fire. And so, I mean, for the most part, when you're traveling to the places that we're going, they are safe. If there is civil unrest, it's usually, these countries have a vested interest in tourism dollars. And so usually, you're pretty good to go in just about any instance here. Obviously, we're not going to, Afghanistan and Iraq and things like that.
But it's probably good. Need some time before we go to those places.
But yeah, for the most part, it's a lot, less sensational than what you see on the news here, I guess.
I was in DC when the former president got inaugurated. So there was a little spot where there was a quote unquote riot. And I was actually there and I witnessed it. There was this one limousine that a bunch of younger kids, men, were stomping on, smashing the windows, and they eventually lit it on fire. So that became the centerpiece of the news for like weeks. There was riots during the former president's inauguration. And I'm like, okay, let's kind of look at this in a real world scenario. It was an isolated incident of one limo that was lit on fire. Big deal? Maybe not a big deal. It always seems like, oh my God, it's happening everywhere in DC. I'm like, no, it was in one spot. There were like 400 cops there. So
yeah,
it was,
they got enough of them.
Control, but it just appeared that it was out of control, and you just go about your business. It was cool for me as a journalist to go see, but when I left, I took a cab back to my hotel. There was no one around. It wasn't like the city was under siege. It was just a normal day with one little spot where there was some rabble rousing.
I think it's a really good point you're making there, because perception and reality are almost never, succinct here. The example I can give you was the reentry kind of from COVID. And we were one of the first travel companies to really get back out there. And it was summer of 2021. And we had numerous groups that went back over to Europe. And for the people who were brave enough to, jump through the 5 million hoops, because it was every day, it was like, wait a second, you have to test 4 days before, but if you do it like this, and it was a very confusing, like, and if God forbid you're traveling to multiple countries on your trip, like, then you got to jump through 10 more hoops. But the people who braved that, they were rewarded in the most spectacular way. I think it was something like 5% of normal tourism levels in summer of 2021. So we have this picture in France at the Palace of Versailles with our group. And it looks like this fake picture, because like that, like you have a Palace of Versailles background behind you, because there are no people in the picture. And normally that is like a sea of humanity, and they have literally no one there. And so they were just brave enough to take a chance and like jump through the hoops, and like, yeah, they were annoyed and this and that. But when they got over all of that and made the decision they were doing it, like they were rewarded beyond, like, I mean, again, moments in time, like they're never going to get that again, in terms of that, and so having that braveness to say, you know what, okay, like this is a company that's been doing this, they've been around, they've circled the globe a million times, like if they feel it's safe, like I'm not going anywhere where I don't feel safe, that's for sure. I've got a family, I've got 2 kids, so that's how we approach all of our decisions. Can we do it safely? Can you tune that out a little bit, because truly this is the experience we're going to have here.
That's a bold decision. What did the pandemic mean for you guys as a company, right? Because what you do at Cruise and Tours, you offer these amazing adventures like the one we're going on in Ireland next summer. That must have been, shocking, because you just couldn't do it. So your entire business just really couldn't be done. So how do you grit and bear through that?
Wow, there's I think we could do an entire new podcast on this one here, unpack the psychological phases of this year. But for me, there was a couple things. One, the period leading up to the pandemic was as hot of a travel market as you could possibly imagine. So we were just, as a entrepreneur and a business owner, was just going at an unhealthy rate of pedal to the metal. The pandemic at first was crushing, and of course we had to lay off some really incredible people. Fortunately, my folks taught me some really important fiscal conservative values, and so we never bought any yachts or drove any fancy cars or anything like that. We wanted to make sure that if anything ever happened in our business or whatever, because we know that we're just one day away from some random thing happening, that we could withstand that. So we were able to keep a few people on. And I remember distinctly in like May of 2020, just waving the white flag and just saying, okay, I give up, I surrender. I understand the scenario. And so all we were doing was basically postponing trips at that point. And unfortunately, we had this really loyal group of people who had been traveling us for a long time. And so they're like, sounds good, we'll just postpone to this date and postpone again if they had to. But for me, it was personally one of the moments of my life where I was able to like reconnect with family and business, and just take a few moments off. And when we were able to get back traveling again, the gratitude of our travelers and the gratitude of us and like the shared experience just seemed that much more profound.
I totally agree, and I've come to believe, Charlie, that life happens, right? Everything in that is an opportunity. So for me, the pandemic was a great opportunity to kind of dig into some things that I was working through and trying to get a handle on those in a better way, because I had that time. But now that I have that time, now that I appreciate life even more than I did 5-7 years ago, that's why I can't wait to go to Ireland, because number one, I've never been. So it's going to be completely new. What you and I have talked about, Charlie, as far as the Irish people go, like that was the selling point to me, is that we get to hang out in a pub, maybe have a conversation with someone who's born and raised in Ireland, someone whose family was born and raised in Ireland. And we get to have that knowledge, that experience, that connection all throughout the country in this post-pandemic world where we're finally back to normal, but somewhat still guarded in certain ways. So this is, I think, opportunities for us as travelers to reestablish normal, but do it in a more appreciative way based on what we've all been through over the last 3.5 years.
Yeah, I can truly say that, Rob, I am excited for you. I truly, like, whenever I'm going on vacation, whether it's just a stick my feet in the sand vacation or this big epic journey, like the anticipation, the excitement, the experience is like, man, it's like these things to look forward to are just so incredible. And so I'm truly can't wait to see the pictures. Like I'm checking in with John on hey, how's it going? Everything, good, all that kind of stuff. But like, you guys are going to have such an incredible time, and I'm just so excited that we were able to connect, and that I really want to go on this trip with you. I think we would have a ball together. So we'll see. You'll see what my wife thinks about that.
I gotta go. It's work. It's work, hon. I swear.
This guy Rob, he's super high maintenance. I got to make sure that everything goes well.
Take care of them. Exactly. Point is, you're invited with us. This is going to be a once in a lifetime experience, a once in a lifetime opportunity with our guide John, who's going to show us so much about Ireland that we will never forget. And doing it with us, like this group that we're going to go with, is going to be fantastic. So much so that we know we're going to do it annually for years to come, maybe even more. We'll just keep talking to Charlie about it and making it happen. So how do you book your trip to Ireland with us, with me? You call 800-383-3131. Cruise and Tour, they're ready for you. Deanna and the team and Charlie and the team. Man, you guys are all great people too. You're all nice and fun and love to travel. And we'll share that experience with you when you call 800-383-3131. If you want to look at the pictures, tourwithrob.com. They're going to blow you away. Charlie, I'm so excited to be partnering up with you and Cruise and Tour and your team. And thanks for sharing some stories with us. I definitely would love to do it again. I think talking about the psychological phases during the pandemic as a business owner, it'll be a fascinating conversation. So let's link up again and talk about that soon.
That sounds good. I've more than enjoyed my my hour. This did not feel like work at all here. So I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to hear all the stories from your trip here.
It's going to be awesome.